Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, gentlemen. My question today is for Director Flynn.
Yes, sir.
Many small communities in Pennsylvania are impacted by floods, and I'm aware of what your department does in reacting to those situations. But could you give me more information on how you can be proactive and more in flood prevention for those communities?
Absolutely. Now, the good news is there's a couple different programs that exist. If, in fact, we get a federal disaster declaration, it's typically by county. Now, again, I'm hoping to get this snow disaster declaration. But then you get all 67 counties eligible for what's called hazard mitigation. And hazard mitigation is an outstanding good news story where, in fact, you actually, as I mentioned, take residents out of harm's way. You build the houses up, or you in fact buy them out. And there's other things, including we bought, I think, 20-some generators last year using those kind of funds. So there's the pre-disaster mitigation program that exists, as well as the mitigation program associated with a post-disaster. And we work very closely with the communities. The caveat to it is that each community working through their county has to have a hazard mitigation plan. And you're talking about individuals getting together, and there's a lot of technical assistance that we provide to get those plans in place, to be able to identify what are the risks, what are the things that we can do to reduce those risks, and then apply for those grants. Now, there are federal grants that come into play. There's only a certain dollar amount that's given, so there's a prioritization that happens. But again, every time we get a disaster, we're eligible for additional funds.
What about a historic downtown area? One area in particular I represent is a historic downtown Harmony Borough in Butler County. Mm-hmm. And we really can't raise the buildings, and folks really don't want to move away. Their concern is maybe activity, whether it's growth in buildings and earth movement in municipalities surrounding them, would impact them. And one of their top concerns is flooding. What can we do to help, really to help them to be more comfortable with the growth in their area?
That's a tough question from the standpoint from an emergency management perspective, but I will tell you that every time there's a mitigation program that's been defined, there's a requirement that both environmental and cultural and historical review occurs at FEMA headquarters. So they actually go in and send a team in to look at what. We don't want to do anything that's going to destroy that cultural or historical perspective. That's all part of the grant process. But in relationship to what happens surrounding that, sir, again, looking at it, whether it be, again, aggressive flood mitigation program that surrounds those communities, that certainly would be something that we would want to take a look at.
And is PEMA more involved in clearing debris in streams, or is that more of a DEP issue?
That's more of a DEP issue, and I will tell you that's a challenge always, especially when you talk about federal reimbursement for it, because the question is, was the debris there before? I've been involved in actually some disaster responses that's a challenge associated with it when you talk about who's going to pay for that. But PEMA is engaged with FEMA when we get those declarations.
Jim, it also kind of rolls into with the stormwater management plans that
Absolutely.
Counties would encompass for a pre-disaster situation. So those municipalities that are affected downstream, it's a very important, and again, that's usually working with the DEP to get those type of plans in place. But again, there's a cost factor associated with that. But again, everybody could do everything right in this community, but if upstream they do nothing, then those downstream get the effects of what the inactivity or the inability for those upstream communities to do something proper. But that'd be through stormwater management, and a county plan is usually very helpful in that sense.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner and Director and Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.